My name is Michelle Ago. On the recap, we'll take a look at the day's top stories and bring you its analysis right here on the show. But today's different because the election is fast approaching. As a matter of fact, it's just about 4 days away. The countdown is on and the race has begun or had begun long ago, but it gets even more intense as the day comes closer. The 18th of March is when we all head to the polls for the gubernatorial election, and it's going to be very competitive with the dynamics and everything that we all witnessed 2 weeks ago, or was it 3 weeks ago, the February 25th election. And this has brought about an even tighter and competitive election. As you may know, this is the most critical election, even more important than that of the presidential election. Like I always tell you on the show, the president isn't going to come and fix the road on your streets. The president isn't going to fix education. The president isn't going to fix the local or primary healthcare center in your constituency or your community. The president isn't going to solve Lagos traffic issues. So many things the president cannot do. However, those who are supposed to do it are the people you ought and will be voting for this Saturday, the 18th of March. And besides the executive arm of government comes a very important arm of government that sometimes we don't pay attention to, especially at the state level, and that is the lawmaking part of everything. We have to look at it. It's critical, the legislative arm of government at the state level. And today we'll be putting our map at the Surulere Constituency 1. It's very interesting because it's quite controversial, if you ask me. It's a tight race, and today we are going to be learning about the manifesto, learning about the thoughts, learning about the ideologies of two personalities who are in the studio here with me. I have the SDP candidate, that's the Social Democratic Party. His name is Mr. Olalekan Oshodi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Absolutely. And over here we have Olumide Olowu, also from the Labour Party, who is going for the Lagos State House of Assembly, Surulere Constituency 1. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Now, this is going to be interesting, and I cannot wait to hear everything that you have to share with my listeners today, because my listeners are passionate voters. They love politics. They tune into politics every single time, and this is an opportunity for them to learn who they'll be voting for come Saturday, March 18th, especially those that live in Surulere. The campaign began a while ago. Let me start with Mr. Olalekan. How's the campaign been so far?
Well, it's been quite interesting and very challenging at the same time.
Okay.
The processes have been, it's been a bit difficult.
Oh.
I would say that we still need to do a lot of social re-engineering.
Social re-engineering of
Yes.
the electorate?
Of the electorate,
Okay.
and the people.
Okay.
You know, it's so disappointing that there's hardly any street you get into within Surulere Constituency 1 today. Before you talk to 1, 2, 3 persons, you know, information has gone around and you begin to see faces trying to, you know, in some cases, if you don't have strong people on ground, you can't continue with your campaign.
Wow.
So terrible.
Wow. Do you think it's threatening, or
Of course,
you talk about physical threats?
It has to do with security.
Right.
It has to do with security.
Okay. Now, Olumide, your unveiling was quite last minute. People did not see it coming, just like they didn't see Peter Obi, your Oga, literally, leave the PDP. So it was like a shocker, just like that of Peter Obi. Had you been nurturing this thought or this dream for a while, or is this something you just thought you could run on, given the quickness and the popularity of the Labour Party?
Very quickly, I just want to say thank you for having me today. This is the first time that I've been in the same space, you know, with any of the other candidates running for the Lagos State House of Assembly for Surulere Constituency 1. So
Okay.
I'm actually looking forward to this session. I believe it's going to be a lovely exchange of ideas. As regards my emergence, I do understand that it did come as a bit of a shock. It was very last minute as well in terms of when I announced. But it was something that I had been working on since last year. There were just some things we need to sort out on party level. which is why it took a bit. We had some issues in the court and all of that, but that's been sorted out, thankfully. And I've been trying to cover as much ground as possible within the allowance that I have left from when I announced.
All right. Now, how's the campaign been so far? He's talking about insecurity and he feeling physically threatened when going to the grassroots to campaign. Have you felt the same pushback?
Unfortunately, you can't rule that out right now, especially with the political landscape that we have in Lagos and in Surulere at the moment. Yesterday, my campaign team and I, were attacked. Unfortunately, somebody got injured, but thankfully it didn't escalate past a certain level. But at the end of the day, these are things that we have to deal with, and these are the things that show why we do need to change how the system is being run. At the end of the day, people should have the freedom to be able to connect with the people and take their campaign message around, and have the people, on the other hand, taking these messages and really be able to come out safely and vote for whichever candidate their conscience resonates with.
Right.
So the fact that we still have to deal with that in terms of safety, it's not the most encouraging, but it is what it is, and that's what we're trying to fight to change.
All right. I love that. I love the word change. Mr. Olalekan, you how long have you been nurturing this entire dream of being a lawmaker at the Lagos State House of Assembly?
Actually, I've always been on the side of the people.
Okay.
I'm a people-oriented person.
All right.
I will not stand by and watch somebody being cheated or molested without taking an action, or in the worst case scenario, at least speak a word against it. So from my antecedent, even as a student, I can remember very well in the course of fight for democracy. I happened to be in the university back then, University of Benin. And, we actually witnessed the immortalization of the June 12 and the fight for the revalidation of the June 12 mandate. So with that, it's more of something that has been in the subconscious.
All right.
It comes naturally.
Is this the first time you're running for this particular position?
Yes, this is the first time.
Okay.
But before now, I was in the last dispensation 4 years ago. I joined the ANRP, Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party.
Okay.
That was meant to be the third force in the political space. It was a like-minded people coming together, crowdfunded, and it was a fantastic idea. But what I would say, at that point in time, I think the electorate was not ready for that novel idea. So this time around, I was prevailed upon to come out again, because I felt I was really, really disappointed.
Okay.
That especially after INEC, they registered the party along with other ones.
Okay.
So
you moved to the Social Democratic Party.
To the Social Democratic Party.
And so far, how are you finding it? Good?
Yeah, it's been a great experience.
Okay.
Especially, when you have someone like the governorship candidate around you, and all the candidates for our House of Assembly election. They are all great guys with fantastic ideas, you know. So it's something that comes naturally. It's not like any one of us is riding on the crest of sheer opportunism.
Okay. So it's always been a part of you.
Yes.
All right. I love that. Why do you want to go into lawmaking, Olumide? What is it about lawmaking that interests you, especially for Surulere?
The thing about lawmaking that interests me the most really is the fact that, the legislature really is the core of the society. A lot of the allowances in terms of what works and what doesn't work, what's allowed and what isn't allowed, is dictated by the legislature. So with the right legislation, we can help in terms of bringing growth and development to Surulere, and also helping to curb on the excesses in terms of having stricter sanctions in Surulere and in Lagos by extension. So that really is the thing that interests me the most, the fact that we have the power to put policies in place that will help to improve the lives of the average Surulere constituents.
So what are some of the problems currently in Surulere that you see that, and this question goes for both of you, because I live in Surulere, so this, so my interest, I'm also bearing out, I'm also going to be looking out for the things that I live with, to understand if you also live in that system.
Right.
So what are some of the issues in Surulere that you're trying to solve through policy making?
Okay.
You can go first.
Okay. Thank you very much. If you study Surulere over the last 3 decades or so, you would realize that Surulere used to be a middle-class society to a very large extent, with a decent environment wherever you go, whatever part of Surulere you are. But I think as a result of the astronomical rise in population density and the attendant pressure on infrastructures, the tendency for every environment to decay into a slum is very high. Very high. So, secondly, as a result of that, the cost of accommodation has risen over the decades, astronomically.
How can you fix that through policy making? Let's talk about accommodation now.
It is very simple. It is a matter of policy.
Okay.
Surulere does not have virgin lands.
Okay.
So the only way to go is expansion skywards. This is the cardinal point I intend to nurture as a legislator. You discuss it on the floor of the House, and you persuade the executive to look into this. There should be legislation that empowers landlords, house owners to develop 3, 4, 5-story buildings. Yes, I know there will be fear about building collapse and this and that, but the standards and codes are there on the table. Anything in building, whether it is 1-story building, whether it is 100-story building, there are standards and codes which, if adhered to the letter, in accordance with efficient supervision by the appropriate agencies like LASBICA, there will be nothing like building collapse, and we would have more accommodation for people, because people are going through a lot. There are people working on the islands who ordinarily would like to live in Surulere, but have now been pushed to outskirts like Ikorodu, Songo, and some people
because of affordability.
Yes.
Okay.
Then I intend to convince the government. Okay, make a pool of money available, or bring in foreign investors, because our banks, or possibly we nudge our banks to really begin to do the core banking jobs. When such monies are available, we have developers who can do all this work very well. They've been building for years. They have with adequate supervision, they will get the jobs done. But their major excuses, one of their major excuses for now has been funding. They will tell you they collect loans at exorbitant
rates.
But with the provision of such monies, developers will no longer have cause to say, okay, they will take over your properties for like 20 or more years. Maybe with an intervention from government in that aspect, it will come down to maybe like 10 years.
All right.
You retain your properties and accommodation becomes available for the people. And then, Surulere gets back to life again.
That's a very good... That's like almost like the life spot of any residents in Surulere. Housing is a big challenge. What about you? What are some ills you see that you would love to fix through policy making?
Yeah, one of the things for me is the way the system is even being run, because there's a lot of money is being generated, but the issue is the transparency of the system.
Okay.
So the first point of call would be to push for legislation that really helps to open up the way the system is being run in terms of transparency, and make it more people focused. And also let's have measurable measurable rates in terms of the growth and development. So that way, a lot of people are more accountable. That's the first point of call. But then you look at Surulere, and one of the major things now that a lot of people are facing now really is the cost of foodstuff. Right now, statistically, you have about 55% of people's incomes right now going into food. So one of the things we can do to ease the conditions of living, first of all, is really just to drop that percentage. And how we can drop that is by involving certain areas in the corporate world. Because again, as you know, sometimes it takes a while in terms of, pushing bills and legislation before you go from the point of, introducing the bill, sponsoring it, and the bill actually flying. So there's things that we can do for ourselves as constituency projects to really tackle all these problems in the immediate whilst all the house activities are going on.
Do you think constituency projects should remain, or you think it should be scrapped?
I think they definitely should remain, because these are things that you can do in the constituency immediately that can be running simultaneously as you're pushing for legislation in the house. For example, in the area of food, there's a lot of food produce or food products being going to waste in different parts of the country. You get in contact with, private sector organizations in the agriculture sector, and you transport a lot of these produce directly to Surulere. That helps to reduce the cost of production. That also reduces waste, because a lot of these crops just go to waste. And by extension, you're saving households monies that they can then put into, other use in the community. So that's one of the other ways why I think community projects, constituency projects are very important, because if you rely on just waiting for bills to be passed, that might take a while, and you need to be able to cushion the effects of the decay that we have because of how the system has been run up until now. So I definitely am pro constituency projects.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I think I have a word or two on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Concerning constituency projects, I am of the view that with quality representation of assembly members on the floor of the assembly, a lot of things will change. One of such is autonomy of the local government. If the local government becomes autonomy, they have their funds and they function as they should function. They are the closest to the people.
Is that something that can function at a state level, or does it need federal intervention?
No. The federal government has been pushing for that, but surprisingly, I wouldn't know why the state is not. It has been topical for a while. Local government autonomy. I remember in those days, most of these things, inner roads were maintained by local government. Inner roads, control of shops, strict residential area enforcement, things like that. They are all functions of the local government. So if local governments are allowed to function properly, there is no way constituency project will not, the need for it to reduce. It cannot be eliminated completely.
Yeah.
That's why, if you had asked me now what would be my constituency project, as an aside legislative function,
right?
I would have told you that this legislative function is the key I'm focused on. My constituency project is going to be a function, of what is prevailing at a particular time.
Per time,
Yes.
the issues that arise.
The state government is taking care of one thing. You can't say you are, you have to look around, look at what the state government has done, look at what the local government has done, now see how you can complement those ones. As it is now in the system, the local governments are hardly functioning.
Right.
So if they function, the need for constituency projects will
reduced.
certainly reduce.
Absolutely.
Then secondly, in addition to, I like the point he raised, food is very important. But another thing we have to understand is that we must go back to the grain Surulere. Surulere used to be green. Almost every house had a tree. We had our own kind of, they call it bell-shaped apple. Bell apple.
Okay.
These trees were everywhere, virtually everywhere. If we make Surulere green again, and there are trees everywhere, you will be surprised how much hunger this will take away. Take, for instance, a child who comes back from school. He ate well in the morning. maybe the parents will come back from work around 5, 6. The child gets back home around 4 or thereabout. He needs to take something before the parents come.
Okay. How can
Where you have fruits, this will go a long way in sustaining such a child till the parents come. It's a kind of hunger reduction. And at the same time, it has to do with our survival on the planet.
So you're climate conscious?
Yes, climate conscious.
All right.
Know, greenery, it is not a matter of choice. It's a matter of necessity.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting. I love climate change, and it's really interesting to hear that you're climate conscious. Olumide, do you live in Surulere?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Say you get into this particular role representing Surulere Constituency 1. Would you continue to live and reside in Surulere? Or do you have plans of moving to the island? Because sometimes it's just a normal question because it's almost like the norm here. You have local government chairmen who do not reside in their locality and move. So I think for one to be representing the people, you have to, especially at the state level, you have to live within them. You have to understand the issues. You don't need to be hearing from calls away. You need to live within the system. So are you going to continue to reside?
I would love to continue to reside in Surulere. In fact, even before
what? Is there a but somewhere?
I'm saying, like, even before this I've had the option to move out of Surulere way before now. But I really do love living in Surulere. The fact that Surulere, in my opinion, is at the heart of Lagos is an amazing experience. I mean, you come out to Surulere, you have the island to the left, you have rest of the mainland to the right, you have Apapa right in front of you. I love how the road networks are connected, and Surulere just feels very communal, and that's the feeling I'm really trying to bring back. That growing up, everybody knew everybody. I had friends, and we would all go to each other's houses to play from different parts of Surulere, and it just felt safe and communal. So it does make sense to be on ground and have the government be more people focused, and have regular meetings. You have regular town hall meetings, preferably quarterly, where you can sit down and meet with all the members of the different wards and really just exchange ideas, because at the end of the day, as a representative, my job is to amplify their needs as opposed to coming up with problem-solving solutions in isolation of what I think the people want. So the best way to know the areas we need to attack first is by dialogue and really understanding where the people of Surulere are being pinched at, and then figuring out creative ways to push legislation to help bring about, that growth and development to the community.
What are some personal qualities that you have that makes you the best person for this job?
Right. One of the qualities, or some of the qualities rather, that I possess that I believe make me the best fit for this job is I listen. Most times I go into a room and I'm very quiet at the beginning, really just taking in things and absorbing. I think it's very important to be able to possess that skill, especially when you're going to be dealing with a lot of people. It's good to be able to be accessible and accommodating, to be able to just take in as much of their opinions as suggestions as you can. Another thing that I possess is I'm very accountable. I'm also a very simple guy. I don't really need that much. My life is very simple. I like to believe that I operate as an open book. So in terms of transparency, that is one of the things I'm going to be standing for. We will run my system very transparent, very people focused. I also do very well in team settings. I'm a very good team player, and if you look at the setup of the State House of Assembly, it's a team effort. I'm not going to be the only legislator in the house, so it's really good to be able to possess skills in terms of being able to relate with people and know how to function in a team and know how to get your ideas through in terms of team projects without being insensitive, and just finding creative ways to be as persuasive as possible to make sure that I come back to my people in Surulere and give them, good feedback. So these are just some of the things that I believe make me a really good fit for the job.
All right. Mr. Olalekan, this is a very interesting party that you're in, the Social Democratic Party. Yes. I'm just wondering, should you unseat the current House of Assembly representative for Surulere? How would you, and you'll be working as a minority, because at the State House of Assembly, it's largely dominated by those of the ruling party. As a minority member, and maybe a minority leader in the future, how would you be able to work with others when the agenda is different from your own personal ideology? How would you be able to marry that for the growth of not just Surulere constituency, but also for Lagos? Because remember, you're also there to serve all Lagosians through the developments that you put in or the laws that you make for those with Surulere in mind. How would you be able to work with the other members of the team?
First and foremost, it's part of the social engineering I mentioned at the beginning of the program. I see governance beyond political partisanship.
Okay.
And we must find a way to make our people, politicians and non-politicians inclusive, to internalize this in their understanding that governance is beyond political partisanship.
Okay.
So once you are there, and by virtue of my training, I'm a petroleum engineer. Any petroleum engineer, as a petroleum engineer, you work in a multi-ethnic, multiracial environment. Okay. There's no rig you go to in the world, you won't find people from all parts of the world.
Right.
And you learn to relate with them as you work. So for me, it's quite simple. The objective is very clear. The objective is the people. And that is where my loyalty lies. I love my people so much, and there are evidences.
How would you be able to solve problems? Should there be any difference in opinion?
No, naturally there will be differences in opinion.
How would you be able to work through that when the majority voice is louder than yours? How do you become one of them, or do you still stand out as the individual I'm seeing right now?
It's a matter of conscientizing. You conscientize them. You appeal to them. It's a matter of superior arguments. You push forward your narrative. You meet. The fact that we are in different parties doesn't mean we don't relate. Some of us belong to some societies, and we still talk. What is important is, and I believe, we all know what is good for our people. Then, as a democratically elected representative of the people in government, your loyalty, it is very suitable for me, coming from a minority party. I mean, the party is not overbearing on me. You understand? So for me, that is a plus. And for me, in matters of principle, I stand like a rock. In matters of style, I flow with the tide. Are you getting me?
Right.
So it's a matter of how you relate with people. But for me, let it be very clear. My loyalty is to the state.
Okay.
I'm a very passionate Lagosian, and my loyalty is also to the people. Because there are two ways to it. It's either you get to the house and you remain a democratically elected representative of the people, or you allow yourself to become a comprador bourgeoisie and you begin to, do the biddings of the powers that be.
All right. Interesting. Let's go back to you, Olumide,
Right.
going back and forth. And you're clearly one of the youngest people with this race, or rather on this race,
Yeah.
even from the federal level down to the state level, and even now at the representative level. How does this make you feel? When you get into rooms and everyone is older than you, everyone is grown, and do you ever feel intimidated in any way?
Thankfully, I have experience with working with older people from my time in the entertainment industry. I started out working in the industry since when I was, 2 years old. And up until when I was like 19, on every single project I worked on, I was the youngest person.
Okay.
And when I say youngest, usually the closest person to me would be at least 10 years older. So I have experience in terms of being able to have my own voice in a room full of people older than me, because if you don't find a way to have your own opinion be heard, more often than not, they'll push you to the side because, you're young. What do you know? So I had to find a way to let them know that, I'm young.
So you're firm.
Yeah.
Are you saying people can go to the polls and vote for you because they trust that you would not be silenced? Can you go there to represent the youth? Because the youth of this generation, especially Nigeria or even Lagos, they don't take no for an answer. They're very pushy about what they want. Do you represent that tribe?
I definitely believe that I do represent that tribe because I am not a pushover. If I want something and I believe strongly in that thing, I will do whatever it takes until I get that. I'm very goal oriented, and once I set my mind to it, I would do whatever I need to do to accomplish that. That being said, it is also my job to find creative ways to be able to have my own voice in the house. I study public relations and advertising, so I, understand a lot when it comes to, consumer perceptions and market analysis, and in terms of branding a product and taking an idea, from formulation to end product. So in terms of whether or not my age is a problem, I don't see it as a problem. In fact, I see it as a strength because as young people, we have a very different approach to problem solving. And our perspective is very different. And I believe that perspective is really the missing piece in the political landscape of Nigeria right now in terms of how we attack issues. We usually go for, easy, efficient ways that are very easy to manage. And we're also blessed with, technology and exposure. So the approach that I will have to problem solving will be very different to a lot of the older individuals in the political scene. So I'm very excited by the prospect of possibly being the youngest member in the State House of Assembly, and I do believe that I do represent the coconut head generation as we are referred to sometimes. And we are very vocal and we are very aware of what it is in terms of our roles to the future of Nigeria. And the policies that are going to be put in place today are going to affect us directly. So it's only right that we are a part of our future, literally.
All right. Thank you. Now let's take it away from the local level and look at the state for what it is. Lagos State, there are different opinions. Some people believe that Lagos has regressed over time. The infrastructures are not modern enough for what is obtainable of a city of a city that has the largest IGR or the fourth largest IGR in Africa. You come into Lagos and you're not really impressed by the infrastructure, the noise pollution, the air pollution, which is really not really far-fetched from what you can expect in a highly populated society or state. But some people also are of the opinion that Lagos is very progressive. Lagos is moving. People are tripping into Lagos because of the opportunities available. Where do you stand? Do you believe that Lagos is exactly where it ought to be, or do you think we are? What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much. As for me, I would say I see a glass half full rather than half empty. My philosophy is that of politics without bitterness. Lagos, over the decades, in terms of infrastructure, in all honesty, much has been done. But we also have to take into cognizance that Lagos bears the failure of many states in Nigeria. There are many states that are not performing, not doing anything at all. So Lagos does not only bear the pressure of Lagos, but the pressure of so many other states. Having said that, I am of the view that it could always be done better, and that's one of the dangers of a one-party state. If I had the power, the state assembly would be occupied by people from different parties, not even all from my own party. If I had the power, because a one-party state is never good enough for democracy. So that's why, at the rate Lagos is moving, Lagos could move much faster than this.
Okay.
Look at the light rail project, for instance. It's a very good project. Mass transit. Absolutely fantastic. But if you look at how long it took the government, almost 16 years, to build how many kilometers of rail, that is not good enough. So, having said that, there are ways there is much room for improvement.
All right.
And that points to the fact that we need some fresh ideas in the state government.
Oh, I love that. Fresh ideas. All right, let me come back to you before we go to the phone lines, because I'm sure my listeners, I'm already seeing some messages here, but we'll get into that shortly. Now, he's mentioned something that is key, the fact that he thinks that Lagos State, or the failure of Lagos, is as a result of the failure of other states. And but what I can take from that is the fact that Lagos has become is a multi-tribal state.
Of course.
It's filled with people from the north, it's filled with people from the west, the south, every single area, every single part of the country is represented here in Lagos. I just want to find out from you, what are your thoughts on representation, inclusivity of these different tribes of people represented in governance or in government in Lagos State? Do you think that's a policy you're okay with, or do you believe in the indigenousness of Lagos for Lagos? Are you open to that? Are you inclusive in thinking as far as governance is concerned, or do you hold on to the belief that Lagos State should be run by the true indigenous people of Lagos? Where do you stand?
I definitely believe in inclusivity. I believe in capacity. Hiring should be based on capacity. So if you have people who are a functional part of society, they should have a say in terms of, the affairs of the society, especially if they're playing their part to try to move the society forward. So whether or not somebody is an indigenous member of the state or whatnot, I don't think that should be the only criteria in terms of hiring. You should have people be a part of a system based on what they're going to be bringing to the table, based on the ideas that they have, and just their all-round character as well. So if somebody possesses all the qualities that a leader should have or a representative should have, I see no reason why that person should not be given an opportunity to help the greater good of the people. Because at the end of the day, if you're looking at Lagos and whether or not Lagos is successful, I would like to base it based on the standard of living. So regardless of whatever it is that we're seeing as development, if the standard of living of the average Lagosian is not up to standard, then Lagos is not functioning. Because really, if we're saying the government is people focused, then it should be about the people. So if the people are not enjoying the infrastructure and the services, and if a lot of the wealth is concentrated in a small pool of people, and I think that's something that we really need to look at and we need to revisit. And I believe that, having an inclusive, people-focused government is the way to go to really help that situation. Also, just because Nigeria is one of the most diverse countries in the world, and Lagos is really at the heart of that. So there's no way you're not going to have people from other parts of the country, come into Lagos to set up shop, and really try to... I mean, Lagos is where dreams are made in Nigeria, if we're being honest. So it is going to be a cocktail of people. So how do you then limit certain people from participating in the affairs of that state or that area, especially if they're going to be bringing things to the table that will help to move the entire space forward? So I generally believe in inclusivity for sure.
All right, thank you. Before we go to the phone lines, let me just ask a quick question about the Labour Party, simply because of what was seen at the presidential election polls. We saw the party gain over 6 million votes. And I'm just wondering, because of the third force that is the Labour Party in the current political space in Nigeria, we then begin to think about the space for ideologies. What exactly, when we look at the SDP party, what do we see? When we look at the Labour Party, what do we see? What ideology can you sell to me? How can I identify myself as a SDP member, besides just carrying a card?
Of course.
I believe your identity sometimes can come from the way you think, just like the United States, which our entire political architecture is modeled after. You have the Democrats, you have the Republicans, you have the Conservatives, you have the far left, you have all these different ideologies. what exactly about the Labour Party resonates with you? What is it about the Labour Party that goes beyond the logo, that when we see you, we can say, oh, that is a behavior or a character of someone of the Labour Party?
The thing about the Labour Party that resonates with me the most is a party that is willing to give people a chance, a party that's very inclusive, and a party that is people focused. And at the end of the day, I believe that is what a government system should be, and that is what people in, representative and government positions should possess. Those are the characters they should possess. It needs to be people focused. It needs to have, a different approach in terms of the mentality. And I do believe that the Labour Party stands, for fairness and equity and inclusion, and really just standing for what you believe in. I mean, if you look at, how even the voting experience on the day, even with, some of the hitches in certain areas, people still stayed for as many hours as was necessary to make sure, their votes were counted. I even saw, videos of people in the rain, so there's a resilience as well that I believe the Labour Party stands for. And I'm very blessed to also be in this position to have a party that actually has a shot at taking government positions and having its members in government positions, giving a young person the opportunity to really be a part of the system. We can't really say that for a lot of parties right now. So that really is, these are some of the biggest things that I really like about the party.
All right. What about the Social Democratic Party? What about the party resonates with you ever since you left the other party last year?
Yes, it's essentially a cerebral approach to virtually everything.
Okay.
Cerebral approach to doing things, innovative, educate. I mean, knowledge is very key.
Yeah.
In everything, and you can see it in almost all our candidates. But, just to add a word or two. Okay, let me just stop there.
Right.
I don't want to dabble into,
sometimes,
sometimes some things you see are child of circumstances, not necessarily,
okay,
by design.
All right.
So let me just stop there.
All right. I love the ideology of people who strive for excellence. I mean, if you do believe that the party represents a bunch of cerebral people, then it's important. Intellectual capacity is key to running a government. We'll go to the phone lines right now to hear from our listeners. The phone lines are 0809 191 3913, 0809 222 0913, 0809 234 5913. You can also tweet at Lagos Talks 913. That is at Lagos Talks 913. Do not forget to send us a message on WhatsApp. Anywhere you are in the diaspora, if you live in Surulere, if you live on the island, doesn't matter where you live, be a part of the conversation and let's hear from you. Lagos Talks, good evening.
This is Mr. Patrick calling from Wood.
All right, Mr. Patrick, go ahead, please.
Yeah, the one I want to let people know about this Lagos. This Lagos was the capital of Nigeria for 1950. It was moved to Abuja. So most of the companies have their head office here. That is why you have a large population of people coming to Lagos. Not that you're coming to Lagos for anything. People coming to Lagos for the fact that it was the capital of Nigeria, and so many companies have head office here before they now have office at Abuja. So that's the only thing they should know. That not every special place is because of the capital of the country. So I want to ask your guest there: is it a Labour man?
Pardon me?
Are you? Is your candidate? Is your guest there a Labour?
He belongs to the Labour Party. One of them belongs to the Labour Party.
And one of them.
One of them does, yes.
Okay.
Thanks for calling. Lagos Talks, good evening.
Hello, Michelle.
Welcome. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
You are Comrade Akpan on the line.
All right, Comrade Akpan, join the conversation.
Good evening, young guys.
Good evening, yeah.
Yes, I want to ask the two candidates that I have listened to right from the commencement of this program. I think you guys are aware that if that the grace of God scales through, Yeah, some of you are going to be first timers in the house. And APC, they are going to be majority. There is no doubt about that in Lagos State House of Assembly. How are you going to walk out of such, challenges that we are seeing ahead? Is represent a bill that will transform, if it is signed into law, that may likely transform the lives of the people in the street area. How are you going to come out of this this kind of a challenge? Because it's one thing to win election, it's another thing for you to have that free hand in representing the people of street area.
All right. Thank you, Comrade Akpan. Who wants to go first?
Yeah. Okay. It has to do.
I think we touched on that a little. So just summarize it. Just
It has to do more with your interpersonal relationships. You know, if you've worked in a diverse environment and you are a team player, it shouldn't really be much of a problem.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's take this call. Lagos Talks. Good evening. Are you there?
Good evening, Michelle.
Welcome. What's your name?
I was born and raised in Surulere, by the way.
Okay. Where are you calling from?
So, my name is Remy. I'm calling you from London.
All right. Go ahead.
This idea of Lagos is bearing burdens of other states is disappointing. You see, people in Lagos are assets. But the lack of leadership and lack of foresight on his asset to liability. So, gentlemen, I want to ask, what will you do differently to think about a radical reform in Lagos? Because this is what is lacking. And secondly, can you confirm to my people that if they go out and vote for you on Saturday, you will not turn again at some and practice those despicable party? Thank you.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Remy from Tottenham.
Yeah.
I think we should take you
Right. So I think actually the reform really has to come from changing how the system is run, which is why I really stress transparency and accountability. Because as we know, Lagos generates a whole lot in terms of, IGR. But where do these monies go? We don't really know. Nobody's following the paper trail. So what we need to do is put, things in place that open up the government system. Have everybody see what is going on, how much is this costing, where is this money going, what's the plan for this, have it be interactive, whether it's through, websites, whether it's through apps. This information should be put out there even before people go and look for it. I mean, I know you can say, yes, there's the, Freedom of Information Act, but it should be there even without people having to go out of their ways to find this information. And I believe that once we have the right people in government that are thinking the right way, it'll trickle down into how the system is being run. A lot of the structures that we have unofficially or officially are by extension due to a way of thinking of the leaders in power right now. So if you have the right people in those positions and you open up the government and make it more transparent, it'll be easier to run a government that's more people focused, because now you're accountable and you have stricter sanctions and you have timelines, and everything that you're proposing has to be accountable. And we need to be able to just generally be sure that everybody's on the same page. So I believe that we having the right people in the system, it will greatly change how the system is being run.
All right.
Yes.
There was a second part to his question. He wants to know what the guarantee is that when you both, by some means, get to the State House of Assembly, you wouldn't jump ship.
Right.
You wouldn't cross carpet and join,
Yeah. I want to make a quick clarification with what the caller said.
Yeah.
By saying Lagos is bearing the burden of other states, it's just a heads up. We can't afford to have in a 36 state just maybe a few states functioning. I will be very happy, and I look forward to us having many Lagoses, if I can put it that way, within our system in Nigeria.
Do you really think some states are not functioning? When you say functioning, what do you mean? Because I've traveled to some states in Nigeria, and it seems as though they live on their means.
Well, they are from economically, and there are economic opportunities that we are not exploring. Take a state like Bayelsa, for instance. It has fantastic tourism potential beyond the horizon. Look at some states in Nigeria. They should be agrarian states. They should be deep into farming, with government of the states giving direction and putting its foot on the ground. So these are the things. Let every state exploit its potentials.
Can I just say something very quickly?
Go ahead.
I do hear that, and that to a certain extent is valid. But at the end of the day, if you look at the numbers that Lagos is generating, burden or not, we should be doing a lot better than we are right now. Because as I said, the way to classify a successful state for me is the standard of living of the people in that state. And you have other states that are not generating as much as Lagos is generating, and you have people in that state living in better conditions. So by all means, we should be doing better in terms of, if you look at, the even in the corporate sector, the amount of industries that we have set up here, companies that we have set up here, what really are we doing to make sure that they're doing more in terms of their CSR? What are they doing to really better the communities that they're functioning in, or maybe even in some cases benefit from? Exactly. So I do understand that if you're looking at a big picture, yes, certain things are not as ideal as we would like in the country generally. But if we put a spotlight on Lagos, with what Lagos is generating and with the opportunities and even the positioning of Lagos, with the ports and all of that, Lagos really should be doing way better, even with the existing resources and monies that we're generating. And that really is the problem. And that's why we need to really change how the system is being run and really open up this government so we can see where all these monies are going to. It's really not about spending money alone. Yes, the government is spending a lot of money, but there's no problem if you're spending a lot of money and getting measurable results on those expenses. So that's what we need to see. What are the measurable results for the plans and policies that we're putting in place?
All right, let's take more calls now. Lagos Talks, good evening. All right, do call back. Lagos Talks. So defecting. Sorry, we'll come to that. We need to take more calls. Lagos Talks, good evening.
You have a book on the line. Thank you very much. I've been viewing the show. It makes a lot of sense. Thanks to the Labour guy and as well the LCC man there. It's a good thing that you are talking to Lagosians to live here. And you talked about people focus Labour Party guy, yeah?
Go ahead with your question.
How do you deal with delay gratification? Because we live in
deal with what?
Delay gratification to some of the services. Okay, say for example, or not in a case when there is an electricity medicine, there will be a conflict across. So how do you deal with this in school area where people have light out, the high tariff, those things? Then again, cost of living, transportation, road network and all. How do you see that people that are doing the construction, there is a good road science just so people don't fall into plasma and those small problems? How do you push for these things in the Lagos State, especially the policy? I appreciate you again. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So, anyway, these problems are interrelated in a way. Part of the points I was trying to make. Some of these problems we are facing in Lagos are self-inflicted. I mean, we have ports in Lagos that are extremely busy, whereas there are ports in other parts of the country that are lying idle.
So the fault of the federal government?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm trying to look at it beyond. You cannot take Lagos in isolation. Development, it is the duty of the government to spread development around the country.
All right.
When you spread development, then population density and pressure on infrastructure will certainly drop. That's the point I was trying to make.
All right. But we've seen nations like China that triples in population. I think there are over 1 billion people. But one thing is consistent.
Yeah.
The progressive level of infrastructure.
Exactly.
That doesn't just look at today, but also projects what the population rise or percentage will be in the next 6 months.
Yes.
They make the right bridges.
Yes.
They make the right... they just put infrastructures in place.
And the infrastructures are spread. It It is not if you had put them only in Shanghai, the way we are moving in Nigeria, other cities have to come up.
Absolutely.
I expect to see synergy between Lagos and Ogun State, for instance. I don't see that happening. You understand? It is until we begin to do some of these things, maybe interstate rail system, where people could be living in Ibadan and working in Lagos, the congestion will surely take place and take away some of these problems.
All right. Let's take more calls now. I think this should be the last call today. Lagos Talks, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Welcome. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Kenneth. I'm calling from Nigeria.
All right, Kenneth, let's hear you.
I think the last speaker was spot on. We have a federal system that does not allow states to develop the way to develop. And I want to tell you that Lagos has a blueprint. I came to Lagos, I think I was a very young boy in 1972. And at that time, the Ikorodu road, that part of the road was just maybe 2 lanes or so, they were expanding it. What I'm trying to say here is that people that are in the hand of the book wait for one particular maybe governor to come and say this is where you are focusing, this is where you are focusing. I start expanding the road from 1 lane to 2 lanes to 3 lanes to 4 lanes. Let them look at the blueprint properly in Lagos. Go in routes, connecting routes. Because we don't have, if you're coming out from Lekki, we don't have that express. People coming from Bodija everywhere coming to that road. And it tends to make things a little bit to drag. That is the word.
All right.
So Lagos keeps dragging. Let's forget about the fight for the federal country capital. Now everything has moved to Abuja. Abuja is now more. If you go to Abuja, you see the road. They did the road. So you don't wait for season to season. Let them put the blueprint on the ground, and construct Lagos the way it's supposed to be, the way it ought to be, the way it was planned.
Thank you for calling. We have to wrap it up. All right. Big thanks to everyone who joined the conversation. For those who have been listening and are cleaning up their PVCs, ready to head to the polls on Saturday. Remember, it's not just about the Lagos State House of Assembly election. We also have a governor to pick out of the pool available to us. Are you going to retain this particular governance? Are you going to change it? Who would you be voting for? These are the questions that we hope you make up your mind on before Saturday. But we have Mr. Olalekan Oshodi from the SDP party, and I'd love to hear your last words before we go.
Yeah, I will seize this opportunity to respond to one of the callers who asked if I will remain, on the platform if I get into the House of Assembly. You have my assurance, please. This mandate is not only mine; it is also that of others who want a different platform. So it is beyond me. You have my assurances, and you can also investigate my antecedents. If you check where I'm coming from, the kind of parties I've associated with, you will have a clear idea of who I am. Thank you.
Right. Interesting. What about you, Olumide Olowu? Do you have any last words to share before we go with your listeners?
What I would just like to say is, at the end of the day, we really need, better representation. And we really need a change in terms of approach to government and the ideas that we're putting forward. So as people make decisions for the candidates that they want to vote for, they should really look at the candidates whose ideas can really change the approach to the Nigerian system of government, and the candidates that really appeal to them in sense of who they see as a leader worthy of emulation, somebody that's worthy of being followed, and somebody who really has the well-being of the average Nigerian in mind and has forward-thinking ideas and a clear plan on how to restructure the system in a way that the standard of living increases. So I'm hoping for favorable results on the day, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is that we get the right people in government. And I believe that is one step closer to putting Nigeria on the path that it deserves to be on, especially because of the potential that, Lagos and the country generally possesses.
All right, thank you so much. You've been listening to the recap on Lagos Talks 91.3. My name is Michelle Ago. This has been a very interesting conversation with the Surulere Constituency 1 candidate of the Lagos State House of Assembly. The SDP candidate is Mr. Olalekan Oshodi, and that of the Labour Party is Olumide Olowu. Remember to Oworu. Yes. Apologies. Remember to head to the polls this Saturday. Remember to vote and not fight. Protect your votes and vote for who you believe in. Good evening.